of the... Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Toropygina, and the first thing I would like to say, I'm envy very much those of you who are there in the green hall of the Institute of Oriental Manuscripts, because I worked for a long time there, and it was very good days, which I remember quite well. And now I'm going to my presentation. I will talk today about woodblock editions of Seiashō with illustrations. At first, some words about what kind of text is it. Seiashō in English, from a frog at the bottom of the well, is the text that belongs to the genre of karon. Karon is the theory of poetry, or kagaku, which is study of poetry. Karon texts do not have any single definite structure. Some are like poetic anthologies. In other cases, a theoretical position is given, which is abundantly exemplified by poetic materials. There are works where much attention is paid to both theory and the history of poetry, its role in public life, various cases associated with writers and writing, and so on. There are a lot of kagaku texts. The most famous are, of course, from Heian period. The text which I am going to talk about is not so early. It was created in the 60s of 14th century. With the advent of printing era, many classical texts were published. At the same time, there were also such secret knowledge that shouldn't have been available for everyone, for a general public. So some of the texts were not published in the very beginning of the publishing era in Edo period. The massive edition of the kagaku texts dates back to the turn of the 17th and 18th centuries. There are not many earlier editions. I tried to find if there were another illustrated editions of kagaku text apart from these Seiashō text, but as far as now, I didn't find any other text. Of course, I don't want to say that there were no illustrated karon text apart from these one, but I didn't mention to find. But if any, they are not numerous, I think, anyway. It is because these genre doesn't need illustrations. The karon texts were not illustrated from the very beginning. What we can say about the text by Ton-A. It was published very early in comparison with other karon texts. It was published for the first time in 1648. This first edition was edition without illustrations. If to try to understand why the text by Ton-A was published so early, perhaps it was because he was a very influential figure in the poetic circles of his time, but there were a lot of other poets even more influential in their lifetime. But he created the poetical school of his own, and perhaps his text was published so early because the poetic school of Ton-A was still active in Edo period. Seiashō is the text that consists of 6 parts, 6 marki. Stephen Carter, here you can see his book Just Living. He names these work a comprehensive pedagogical work, in which Tonar copied for his students important pages from earlier works by masters of the past on a variety of topics, adding a few comments of his own and a section of chatty anecdotes, bits of lore, and advice from his own experience over the years. The part of the book which interests which attracts interest now is the 6th part of the work, which is this poetic lore and anecdotes. But for my presentation, it will be of less interest, as there will be no illustrations for this last part. Now let us proceed to the book itself. For my today's study, I used both online and offline materials. The most useful databases was the Union Catalog of Early Japanese Books. We've heard about this database yesterday in presentation by Fujimura Sensei and Yamamoto Sensei from National Institute of Japanese Literature. And I used also digital editions of old books by National Diet Library and Waseda University Library. The first edition, the last page of this edition, you can see on this slide. It was done in 1686. The book was published in Edo by Honyaki Obe, and the colophon which you can see here, it has only the date and the name of the publisher, but no name of the artist. And actually, there is no name of the author of Ton-ai as well in this book. This book was republished in 1709, and this is on this slide. You can see the book which I'm happy to have in my hands. So I'm able to touch it and to smell it and so on, because it is very difficult to work only with the online materials. You can never understand what kind of book you have. As you see, the colophon is quite the same. We have here the names of the publishers, and we do not have the name of the artist, but here you can see some views of this book. It is published in 5 volumes. The last 5th volume has two parts of the book, the 5th and the 6th marki. It is Fukuro Toji. So and here is the page with the illustration, how it looks like. The name of the artist, as I've said already, is not in the book, but it is attributed to Hishikawa Muranobu. The name of these artists appears in any book or article on the history of Japanese book illustration. I will quote from the Russian work, the book by Zavatskaya, which is called Japanese Art of Books, 7th, 19th centuries. Speaking of the time of Moronobu, the author writes, "The artistic merit of a book is increasingly beginning to be determined by the skill of the illustrator. This revolution in the history of book art was associated primarily with the activities of Hishikawa Moronobu. He transferred into woodcut the grace and beauty of the lines inherent in classical Japanese painting." This artist, Hishikawa Moronobu, illustrated a lot of books. Probably now his most famous illustrations are for Ihara Saikaku's Kōshoku Ichidai Otoko. Here I have selected the titles of several books related to poetry. Here you can see, for example, these book where we can see two main types of illustrations for poems, which are kasen, the images of poets, and utae, the images, the interpretation, a kind of interpretation of the poems. Here you can see the pages with illustrations from this book. There are, all in all, there are 24 illustrations in the book. They are evenly distributed over the first 4 parts of the book. 6 illustrations in each part, each marking of the first four marking. And all illustrations are to those poems which are quoted in this part of the work. Here we can see the illustration, and from this slide we can understand the construction of the book. On the illustration, we can see in the lower part the picture itself, and over it is the poem. Only the text of the poem without any additional information, like, for example, the name of the poet or the theme of the poem, something like that. Only the text of the poem. The poem is recorded in chirashigaki style, that is scattered writing. And what I would like you to pay attention at this slide is the method of pagination of the sheets with the illustration. This upper part is the volume, the number of the volume. In this case, it is 4th volume. Here is the number of the sheet with the illustration. It's the third one, and here is the pagination, which means the place of the illustration in the marking. So it's the second 17th page. Different volumes have different kanji for these mark. If to say about the illustration itself, it goes very very straight to the text of the poem, but of course it is a kind of interpretation of the text of the poem. Professor Mostov uses the word pictorialization for such interpretations, pictorial interpretations of the poems. As I am not an art historian, but philologist, this part, the poem, how the poem is recorded in the illustration is most interesting material for me, and so I've made this slide with all poems from this edition, and to my mind they are done very interesting. Of course, this kind of recording of the poem not only give some dimension, some new dimension to the reading of poems, but also integrate the calligraphy into pictorial composition. But at the same time, we can see here that the rhythm of the recording corresponds to the rhythm of the poem. The structure is very understandable if we look, for example, at these poem. All lines are separated one from another, and you can see also the first part of the poem and the end of the poem. Those features which are very important in understanding the Japanese verse. Oh, I'm sorry. So let us move to the next slide, which also shows that the structure of the poem is very is like the poem itself. It is scattered writing, but all lines are by themselves. And now let us move to another publication with illustrations, which appeared in 1752. So it's some 60, a little bit more years after the first publication. Here we can see the name of Ton-A at the beginning of the work, and if to look at the colophon, here is names of Ton-A, of the author or compiler. And we have here also the names of artist and of engraver. So here the names of the name of the artist is in the colophon. It is the new edition of the same book. Here in the colophon, the date is the same, but I believe that this edition could be a little bit later edition than the previous that was on the previous slide. The artist of this second illustrated book of Seiashō is Tachibana Morikuni. Here are two titles of another his books with the illustrations for poetry. If we peep into the book, we can notice that the structure is rather similar to the previous one. I mean that illustrations are on the separate sheets of paper, but the number of illustrations increased greatly. If there were 24 illustrations in the first editions, here are 80 illustrations. If to say about the pagination of the sheets with the illustration, here are the pagination for text pages, for text sheets, and pagination for illustrations are separate. It means that all illustrations could be placed in one place, and we have in that case we have editions like that with a kind of illustrated album in one place, in the beginning or in the end of the book. Now to the illustrations. Among the illustrations, 18 poems are the same in the book illustrated by Hisakawa Moronobu and illustrated by Tachibana Morikuni. And here we can see that, of course, Tachibana Morikuni was acquainted with Hisakawa Moronobu's work. In this case, the scene for the poem is quite the same, but the scene became a little bit nearer to the viewer. The characteristic feature of Morikuni's illustrations is the cloud bands. This element at the bottom border. Here is one more slide that where we can see that the illustration is quite the same, but it's nearer to the viewer, and it has this cloud in the bottom. But of course, not in all cases. Tachibana Morikuni goes after Moronobu. For example, here the poem is the same, but the scene is quite different. And I would like you to pay attention to how the poem is recorded. It is Manyogana here. It is the only one example of such recording of the poem in Morikuni's book. Here also we see the same structure of the illustration as at the previous slide. We see these cloud in the lower part of the illustration and of the upper part of the illustration, and the poem is written in 5 lines. Rather strange because they are just five lines. And my last slide is a kind of puzzle. because it's, to my mind, it's very, very strange. We see here the poem written from left to the right. Not from right upper to left lower part, but from left to the right. At first, I thought that perhaps it was a mistake, or perhaps it was a joke. But I found such recording in another book, in Sugate Hyakunin Shu of 1695. This book was illustrated by Moronobu, and you see this that the poem is written in the same way from left to right. So if somebody from the audience have some ideas about these, please let me know. Comparing the two illustrated editions, the following can be said. The first edition, that is late 17th century, dates back to the time when illustrated editions were just gaining fame. The illustrations are still subject to the text. They can be excluded from their publication. At the same time, the first illustrated edition shows an extremely high professional level. It was done very logically and consistently. The second edition, mid-18th century, shows the changes that have occurred in book publishing over a half century that passed between the publication of the first editions with illustrations by Hishikawa Moronobu and Tachibana Morikuni. The artist has become a figure equal to the author. Illustrations have ceased to supplement the text. They have their own separate value. They can compose an illustrated album separate from the text. The book of 1752 is not labeled with the usual word ehon for illustrated books, but in essence it is ehon. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
And patience.
Do we have any questions on the floor here, maybe? No hands? No hands. No questions from the floor on the online? Any hands coming up? There's a hand. Professor van der Walle. Dozo.
Thank you very much for interesting presentation. It's a kind of subject that also interests me. I have two questions, basically. First of all, Tachibana Morikuni, he is actually somebody who had a background in the Kano school of painting. And then afterwards, he kind of switched his vocation and became the painter of model books for, let's say, aspiring painters. Now, I'm wondering whether the kind of book that you have shown now, dating from 1752, can also be seen as such a kind of model book, or because if I remember correctly, he was the author of about 20 model books for painting, but this somehow, you know, is to me, it seems quite different. At least the purport seems different, but I'm wondering whether, you know, he could also have meant this as a kind of model book for other people who were interested in illustrating waka and somehow, you know, becoming his clients, his customers buying this kind of book. And then the second question is this mata and zoku, because I think you showed an example from page 3 of Maki 4, and then that says mata junana. So there were 6 illustrations per Maki,
Yes, 3 sheets. Yes.
What do you mean? Sheet? Okay, sheets.
3 sheets. So 6 illustrations.
Okay, so so that means
2 illustration per sheet
on a folded sheet. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Mata Junana then refers to the continuous numbering starting from the beginning, because you have I think Maki 1 said Tsugi, and then Maki 2 said Mata, I suppose, and then Maki 3 said Zoku. And I suppose Maki 4 said again Mata, right?
Yes, right. You're right.
So that means where do you start numbering then? Because this is a continuous numbering, right?
I'm not sure about this. If there were continuous numbering, no. Every Maki have the pagination of its own from the first.
But then in Maki 1 to find Tsugi, what does that refer to? Just the first painting, number 1? Because I thought Maki 1 has already Tsugi, right?
Sorry, I will put it once more. What we have here.
Yeah, so yeah,
yes, Maki 1, yeah.
So that means, for instance, the second sheet would have the 3rd and 4th illustration, and then that would be marked by 3 Tsugi, 4 Tsugi. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, okay, fine.
Yes, and your first question about Hishikawa Moronobu,
Morikuni, about Morikuni.
About Morikuni, yes. I don't know exactly if there were books with the illustrations for waka. I didn't see such.
Because this is quite different from the other stuff that he produced, so that's why I found it a little bit intriguing.
Yeah. I will look. It's very interesting. I didn't think about it. I mean about his works, and I didn't see a lot of them.
Okay, but if you come across anything, just let me know, because that would interest me too.
Yes, it's very interesting. I like the book by Moronobu more than by Morikuni.
You can easily see the difference in style, so that in itself is quite interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for this detailed investigation into Tsuki, Mata, and Zoku. Maybe we will one day. I'm also puzzled. Anybody got an answer on the left to right thing of the poem? A quick answer? No? Anybody seen it before? The left to right writing? No? Okay, that remains a mystery. It's time to move on. Thank you very much for your presentation.